They were all dressed in red sweaters. The fireplace crackled, the dog had a Santa hat, and my little brother laughed as Karen fluffed his hair. I stood at the top of the stairs holding the tray of cookies I had just baked. Then she said it, loud enough for everyone to hear, quiet enough to pretend it wasn't cruel. "Let's just do the real family this year." And no one stopped her. Not my dad. Not even the photographer. That's when I knew I was never meant to be in that photo. This video tells the story of what that moment did to me, how I found healing in the silence they left behind, and why sometimes being left out teaches you more than fitting in ever could. If you've ever felt like the extra piece in someone else's puzzle, stay till the end. And don't forget to subscribe for more real raw stories like this. Every year the Christmas card went out on the first week of December. Like clockwork. My stepmom Karen would start planning it in October. Picking out matching outfits, choosing a color scheme, scouring Pinterest for poses and props. Dad mostly stood around, smiling when prompted, but Karen? She lived for this. The lighting, the aesthetic, the illusion of perfection. I always knew when it was photo day. The house would smell like cinnamon sugar candles. The camera tripod would be standing tall in the living room, and my step-siblings, Liam and Zoe, would be dressed in fresh-pressed outfits, looking like they walked out of a family catalog. But this year felt different. Not because I expected to be invited to the shoot. That hope had quietly died years ago. But because this year they didn't even pretend. I was upstairs folding laundry when I heard the music start. That classic jazzy version of Jingle Bells Karen loved so much. I walked to the banister and looked down. Liam in a burgundy cardigan. Zoe in a cream dress with a matching bow. Karen wore red plaid and flawless makeup. No one looked up. I stood there for a few seconds waiting for, I don't know, a gesture? A word. "Hey, we're doing the photo now. Come join." But it never came. Instead, Karen clapped her hands, laughing. "Okay. Let's get this over with before the sun shifts." I didn't go down. I didn't ask. I went back to my room and opened my closet. There, still in the plastic, was the red sweater I bought with my own money, just in case. Just in case this year was different. Just in case they remembered I was family too. Just in case someone said, "This time you're in it." I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at that sweater for a long time. The tag still hanging. The sleeves still creased. I hadn't even tried it on yet. Downstairs I could hear the shutter clicks. Karen's laugh. Liam making jokes. Zoe saying, "Let's take a silly one too." And in that moment I realized something that hurt more than I was ready for. I hadn't just been left out. I had been deliberately excluded. Because no one forgets the child that lives under their roof. Not by accident. Not every year. This wasn't a mistake. This was a message. You don't belong in this picture. You don't fit our version of family. And the worst part? I almost believed them. The next morning the card was on the fridge. Front and center. "Merry Christmas from the Thompsons," in cursive gold foil. 3 smiling faces. A fake snow background. The words, "All our love from our complete little crew." Complete. I stared at that word for longer than I should have. Complete. Like I was a comma that didn't belong in their sentence. Like I was punctuation they edited out. I didn't say anything. Not to Karen. Not to Dad. Definitely not to my mom, who had moved across the country with her new husband and sent me a Christmas card of her own with beach photos and "Love you tons," scribbled like an afterthought. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stopped looking at the fridge. And I told myself, next year I won't buy a sweater. At school people asked about my holiday plans. Going anywhere fun? Are your siblings excited for Santa? You guys doing a big family Christmas? I mastered the art of smiling without commitment. Nodding without confirming. Saying, yeah, the usual, like that meant anything. My best friend Mia caught on faster than most. "You okay?" she asked one day mid-lunch. "Yeah," I lied. "Just tired." She didn't push. She never did. That's what I loved about her. She always gave me the space to pretend, but never pretended she believed me. Later that day she said her name. Something silly about how families are like fish. Mostly sweet with the peanuts. I replied, "Mine's just nuts." She sent a cup. And somehow that helped more than any long conversation could have. A week before Christmas, Karen hosted her annual cookie exchange. The house was spotless. Music played. Platters of treats lined the counter. I helped set up like I always did. Not because I wanted to, but because I was afraid not to. When her friends arrived, Karen introduced everyone. This is Liam, this is Zoe, and this is this is Rachel. This is my husband's daughter. Not our daughter. Not part of the family. Just a label. An asterisk. That night, after everyone left, I stayed behind to clean. Karen passed me a tray and said, "Thanks for your help tonight. You're always so good at tidying." I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask her why I wasn't good enough to be in the card. Why I didn't get a label like daughter or family. But I didn't. Because I knew she'd say something like, "Oh honey, don't be sensitive." Or worse, she'd smile and say, "Let's not make this about you." So instead I wiped down the counter, threw away the napkins, and tucked the pain back into that invisible drawer I carried in my chest. 2 nights before Christmas Eve, I overheard Karen and Dad talking in the kitchen. "I ordered 20 extra cards this year," she said. "Just in case we run out. People love them." "Nice," Dad said. "They turned out great." Pause. "You think Rachel's upset about not being in them?" Karen laughed. "She's a teenager. They're always upset about something." Then silence. Then the sound of mugs clinking. No apology. No reconsideration. Just a dismissal. A brush off. And that hurt more than not being invited. Because it meant they didn't even care enough to lie about it. On Christmas morning, I opened my stocking alone. Liam and Zoe got new phones. Karen gave Dad a smartwatch. I got a scarf and a $15 Starbucks gift card. I said thank you. I smiled. I posed for the background photos, the ones no one would see. And that night, when the house went quiet, I opened my laptop and started writing this story. Not because I needed to vent, but because I needed proof. Proof that I was here. That I existed in this home, in this family, even if they tried to crop me out of the frame. I didn't plan to tell anyone about what happened that Christmas. Not at school, not online, not even to Mia. It just sat with me like something moldy you forget in the fridge. You don't want to touch it, but it still takes up space. But something changed the day school resumed in January. Mrs. Collins, my photography teacher, handed back our pre-break assignments. Mine was a series of self-portraits. Black and white. Blurry on purpose. One had me standing in front of a blank wall, face turned slightly away. Another showed my hand reaching toward a mirror I'd intentionally fogged up. I'd titled the set "Present but Missing." When she slid the folder across my desk, she said, "These feel honest." I shrugged. Just playing around with light. She looked at me the way only people who've also been ignored know how to look. Soft. Careful. Like she was reading between words. "You ever think about submitting to the regional showcase?" she asked. I blinked. "I'm not good enough for that." Her mouth twitched. "Funny. That's not what I see." I tucked the folder into my backpack and said nothing. But that night I opened it again. I looked at each photo like I was seeing myself for the first time. The fog. The turned head. The hand that never reached the mirror. They weren't just moody teenage shots. They were proof. Of absence. Of silence. Of being halfway visible in a home that treated me like I was just renting space. And for the first time in my life I wondered, what if I stopped asking for someone else to frame me? What if I made my own portrait? A week later, Mia and I sat outside the library, sipping hot chocolate from those vending machine cups that always burned your tongue a little. "Did you get your family's Christmas card?" she asked, trying to sound casual. I nodded slowly. "Yeah." She tilted her head. "Were you in it this year?" I smiled, not bitter, just tired. "No. Just the complete little crew." Her eyes softened. "That's crap, Ray." "I know. You ever think about making your own card? Just for you?" I laughed. "That'd be pathetic." "No," she said. "That'd be powerful." I didn't say anything. But the idea stuck to me like lint on a sweater. The kind of idea that doesn't shake off no matter how many times you roll it away. Later that month, I checked the school bulletin board and found a flyer for the regional photo showcase. Deadline, February 10th. Theme, family framed. I stared at that theme for a long time. Family framed. And then I ripped the flyer off the wall, shoved it into my backpack, and walked straight to Mrs. Collins' room. "I want to submit something," I told her, breathless. She just smiled and pointed to a seat. I started shooting that weekend. But not pretty shots. Not posed smiles and Pinterest lighting. I shot the inside of my bedroom, the messy corners, the folded red sweater still hanging in plastic. I shot the dinner table from the hallway, empty on one side where my chair always was. I shot the fridge, zoomed in on the Christmas card. Gold foil. The word complete. And then I shot myself. First, my face reflected in a window pane, half clear, half smudged. Then my hands, one holding the camera, the other holding the card. Finally, a self-timer photo. Me sitting on the stairs in my red sweater. Alone. Looking directly at the lens. Not smiling. Not performing. Just existing. It was the most honest picture I'd ever taken. Mia helped me pick the final 5 photos for the set. We titled it, Cropped, What Family Doesn't Show. I turned it in 3 days before the deadline. And for the first time in years I didn't care if I won. I just needed it to be seen. Needed me to be seen. Around the same time, Dad noticed something had shifted. Maybe it was the way I stopped making dinner for everyone. Maybe it was how I started keeping my door closed. Or maybe Karen said something like, "She's moody again," and he finally started paying attention. One night he knocked softly on my door. "You okay?" he asked, like someone tossing a rope they weren't sure they'd ever pull back. "Fine," I said. He hovered. "You've been quiet." "I'm always quiet," I replied. A long pause. Then, "Karen thinks maybe you're still upset about the card." I turned slowly. "Still upset?" He flinched. "I didn't mean I wasn't included," I said. "There's no still. There's just fact." He looked at the floor. "She said it was a theme choice. Burgundy and cream. You didn't have the right outfit." I almost laughed. "I had a red sweater. I bought it weeks before." He blinked. "I didn't know that. Because you didn't ask." He looked like he wanted to say more. Maybe defend her. Maybe apologize. But he didn't. He just stood there in the doorway, not fully in, not fully out, like always. Eventually he said, "You're still part of the family, Ray." I nodded. "Just not the photo." And he didn't reply. Because what do you say to a truth that ugly? Weeks passed. School picked up. I submitted 2 more photo essays for class. Mia and I started eating lunch outside again, claiming we were vitamin D loading, but really just needing space. Then one afternoon Mrs. Collins burst into my last period class and handed me an envelope. Inside, an invitation. My photo set had been selected for the showcase finals. 1 of 10 across the entire district. The exhibit would be hosted in the downtown gallery. Real frames. Real lighting. Real people walking past the picture I took. The one where I wasn't smiling, wasn't styled, wasn't posed. Just honest. Just real. Just me. I didn't invite my dad. Didn't tell Karen. But I invited Mia. And Mrs. Collins. And my Aunt Lila. My mom's younger sister who never married and always sent me random, "just thinking of you," texts when no one else remembered I existed. At the exhibit I watched strangers stop at my frame. I watched their faces soften, eyes linger. Some even lean in and whisper to each other. One woman, maybe in her 50s, said, this is the one that hits. You can feel it." Another man murmured, "She looks like someone waiting to be remembered." And I stood there holding a cup of lukewarm cider and thought, maybe I'm not invisible. Maybe I just needed a different frame. That night when I got home I took the Christmas card off the fridge. I didn't rip it. I didn't burn it. I just slipped it into my photo journal under the caption, "The one they made without me, so I made my own." And then I turned the page. And kept writing. The invitation came 2 weeks after the gallery event. It arrived in a cream-colored envelope, embossed in gold with our family's last name printed in looping script. Inside was a note from Karen. Short, pulled, planning Easter brunch. Whole family backyard casual dress. We'd love to have you. Bring a smile. Bring a smile. Not bring yourself. Not we miss you. Just bring a smile. Like a prop. Like that's what had been missing from the Christmas card. I held the invitation in my hand for a long time. Studied the curves of her signature. Remembered the way she always smiled through gritted teeth when people complimented her on holding the family together. I wondered if she even realized the irony, inviting me with a reminder to smile, when she was the one who made me feel erased. I didn't RSVP. I didn't burn the invite either. I just tucked it into the same journal where I'd pressed the Christmas card. Another exhibit in the Museum of Moments where I was expected to perform, not participate. At school things felt different. People started recognizing me from the showcase. Teachers nodded more, students whispered, "That's the girl from the photo wall." Even the vice principal, who once gave me detention for wandering the halls, congratulated me in passing. It was strange. All my life I'd been invisible in the loudest rooms. Now I was seen in the quietest ways. But what stayed with me most were the messages. After the photos went online, people started reaching out. Girls I barely knew. Boys I'd shared classes with since freshman year. Even some teachers. They sent texts, notes, emails. "Your photo made me cry. I didn't know you felt like that. Thank you for saying what I couldn't." I wasn't in my family's card either. But I never thought to take my own picture. One girl left a sticky note on my locker. "I'm not invisible. I'm just uncropped. Inspired by you." I carried that note in my back pocket for a week. Because sometimes, it's the tiniest kindness that stitches something back together. At home nothing changed. Dad barely spoke. Karen played the role of Queen Bee with perfectly arranged flowers on the dining table and themed dish towels. They pretended the showcase didn't exist. Like if they didn't mention it, it hadn't happened. I didn't mind. Because something inside me had shifted. I stopped waiting for them to see me. I had started seeing myself. One Friday afternoon, I walked into Mrs. Collins' classroom with a new idea. She was rearranging prints, humming softly to herself. "I want to do another series," I said. She looked up. "Yeah. I want to photograph stories no one wants to print. Like, the moments families crop out. The pain that gets erased. The girls who sit out of the frame and pretend not to notice." She smiled slowly. "You want to make invisible things visible." I nodded. She didn't ask for permission slips or rubrics. She just said, "Let's do it." The project became my obsession. I started with Mia. She let me photograph her in her childhood bedroom, the one her parents had converted into a guest room after she left for college, even though she hadn't even packed yet. She sat on the bed with her knees pulled to her chest, a suitcase behind her, the sheets already changed to beige. Then I photographed Diego, a classmate whose father stopped speaking to him after he came out. We shot in front of the mailbox, him holding a stack of letters he never sent, his face half lit by the porch light, half in shadow. And then Emily, a junior who'd lost her mother the year before and whose stepmom insisted on moving on. She sat on a stool in the kitchen while party decorations hung behind her. She wasn't smiling, just holding a cake with her mom's name carved in frosting. I called the series, "The Unsent Invitations." Every photo told a story of someone who was asked to stay quiet, to stay small, to stay out of the frame. And every photo said, "We showed up anyway." When the second showcase rolled around, this one larger with statewide submissions, I submitted the series. Not for fame. Not even for the judges. But for the kids like me, the ones who wondered if they were the only ones left out. The gallery was packed. More than the first time. My photos hung in a long row near the back, printed in full size, captioned only by the first name of each subject and one line from our interviews. "He hasn't said, 'I love you' in 3 years." She said I didn't need to cry over a missing person. I sat on the porch the whole party and no one noticed. I stood near the entrance and watched people stop, linger, cry. Some touched the edges of the frames like they were afraid they'd shatter. One woman whispered to her friend, This feels like my daughter." And I knew I had done what I needed to do. A week later something unexpected happened. My Aunt Lila, who had flown in for the showcase, took me out for lunch. She sipped her iced tea and said, "I printed something." She pulled out a Christmas card. My heart caught. But this one was different. No gold foil. No perfect poses. Just me and her, laughing, standing in front of a crooked tree, both wearing socks and holding mugs. On the bottom it read, "Family, the people who don't need a frame to see you." I blinked back tears. "I sent one to your dad," she said. I raised an eyebrow. He shrugged. "He needs to see what love looks like." When we got back to the house, there was a note on my bed. In Dad's handwriting. Not a letter. Not a card. Just a single line on lined paper. I don't know how to fix it. But I'd like to try. No mention of Karen. No excuses. Just a single sentence that didn't erase anything, but acknowledged everything. I didn't respond. Not right away. Some things need time to breathe. but I folded the note and tucked it into my photo journal. Another frame. Another truth. Another start. That spring I stood in front of the mirror wearing my graduation cap. No one asked to take a photo. No card was sent. No bouquet ordered. But Mia came over with cupcakes. Aunt Lila brought her camera. And Mrs. Collins sent a printed photo from the showcase with a note. Keep framing the truth. The world needs more photographers like you. I smiled. Not for a card. Not for approval. But for me. As I finally knew. I was never missing from the picture. They just didn't know where to look. It was the last week of senior year when I found the box. I was helping Karen clean out the attic. Or rather, she asked me to help and I agreed, not out of kindness but curiosity. I wanted to see what she had tucked away all those years. What memories she deemed worthy of storage while I barely earned a place on the fridge. The attic smelled like dust and old paint. Light came in through a tiny window, filtered and soft. I pulled boxes one by one from the shelves while Karen, always immaculate, pointed to labels and barked instructions like she was archiving the royal museum of her curated life. Halfway through, I opened a box marked Family Keepsakes. Inside were photo albums. Dozens. Some newer, some aged and cracking at the seams. I pulled one out, red leather, gold trimming, and opened to a page filled with Christmas cards. Perfect smiles. Matching pajamas. Carefully coordinated outfits. Year after year. Each card was labeled. Christmas 2015. Christmas 2016. Christmas 2017. My stomach dropped. Not one featured me. Not a single one. Even in the years I knew I had been in the house. The years I had helped decorate the tree. Hung stockings. Made hot chocolate while Karen directed the photo shoot, like she was Annie Leibovitz. Those years I wasn't in the shot. Wasn't even asked. I flipped faster. 2018, 2019, 2020. Still not there. And then, 2021. I remembered that day. I'd been sick with the flu. Slept through most of Christmas. Woke up to find dinner cold and the house empty. And there it was, the card from that year. Dad, Karen, Ben and Sasha. Standing in front of the fireplace in matching green sweaters. Even the dog wore one. There was no mention of me. No, we missed you. No, get well soon. Just smiles. Perfect and plastic. I felt the sting in my throat. That pressure behind the eyes that signals tears are forming. But I didn't cry. Not because it didn't hurt. Because it wasn't you. When Karen turned around and saw the album in my lap, she stiffened. You weren't in the mood those years, she said quickly. Really? I asked. Or did you just never ask? She blinked. Silence. I stood up, closed the album and handed it to her. No need to explain, I said. The pictures already did. I went back to my room, sat on the bed and stared at the ceiling. Somehow it was worse knowing they had captured every year without me. That they had gone through the motions of family with such precision, and left me entirely out of the frame. It wasn't forgetfulness. It was a decision. They had chosen the narrative. Chosen who belonged. And I hadn't made the cut. That night I printed every photo I had of myself from the past 5 years. Photos with Aunt Lila. With Mia. With Mrs. Collins. Photos from quiet Sundays and loud parties and moments where I looked like me. Messy hair, crooked smile, eyes half closed and laughter. I laid them out on my floor in a wide square. It looked like a mosaic. A mural of becoming. And then I wrote in bold Sharpie on a blank sheet of paper. This is what they missed. At graduation, Dad sat in the 4th row. Karen wore a pearl necklace and tried to look interested. Ben scrolled through his phone. No one brought flowers. But I didn't look for them when I crossed the stage. I looked toward the back where Aunt Lila held up a homemade sign that read, "You were always enough." Where Mia screamed my name even when everyone else stayed quiet. And when the photographer said, "Smile," I did. Not because it was expected. Because I finally meant it. The summer after graduation I moved in with Aunt Lila. She had a small guest room with a creaky bed and walls covered in art. The first night she made us grilled cheese and tomato soup and told me, "You're not a guest. You're home." And for the first time in my life I believed someone when they said that. I got a job at a local bookstore and started taking night classes in photography. On weekends I volunteered at a youth center helping kids express themselves through art. Some of them were like me, quiet, overlooked, trying to figure out how to matter in a world that kept cropping them out. I told them, "You don't need to be invited to the picture. You can take your own." And they listened. Because I had lived it. One afternoon I received a package. No return address. Inside was a photo frame. Just a note attached. "Maybe you'll put us back in one day. K." I stared at it for a long time. Then placed the frame on my shelf. And slid in a photo of myself. Laughing. Free. Alone but not lonely. I didn't write back. Some silences speak louder than any reply. Months passed. Life softened. I got into a photography fellowship. My project proposal? The Missing Pieces. A series documenting the moments people realized they'd been excluded, and what they did next. My mentor read it and said, "You're not just taking pictures. You're telling the truth." Exactly. Because the truth is, I never needed a Christmas card. I needed a mirror. And now I had one, built from film and light and choice. Sometimes people ask me, "Do you forgive them?" And I say, forgiveness isn't pretending it didn't happen. It's refusing to let it define you. Do I wish things had been different? Of course. But I also know this. If they had included me in those cards, if they had invited me in out of guilt or obligation, I might never have discovered the beauty of creating something entirely mine. This past Christmas I made my own card. No matching sweaters. No fake smiles. Just me, in a thrifted coat holding a mug of cocoa standing in front of a mural I had painted with the youth center kids. Bright colors. Bold shapes. On the bottom I wrote, "Marry everything. Love always." From someone who finally sees herself. I mailed copies to the kids, to my mentors, to the people who stayed. I didn't send one to Karen. Because this time I didn't need to be seen by her. I had already seen myself. And I was beautiful in the frame. New Year's Eve came quietly. No party invitations. No clinking glasses. No dramatic countdowns or midnight kisses. Just me, Aunt Lila, a pizza with too much cheese and an old radio playing jazz. The kind of night that would have once made me feel small. Forgotten. Like everyone else had been picked for something I was left out of. But now, it felt safe. Like a soft landing after a year of hard falls. We didn't talk much. Just shared slices and watched the cities glow from her balcony. She handed me a sparkler right before midnight and said, "Here's to lighting things yourself when no one else brings the fire." And I laughed. Because yeah, that's exactly what I'd done. The next day I started a new journal. The first page wasn't a list of goals or resolutions. It was a letter. To the girl I had been 1 year ago. You tried so hard to be small. To be easy. To be forgettable enough that they wouldn't resent you. But baby, you were never supposed to disappear. You were supposed to shine. A week later I visited the youth center again. The kids had been working on their own version of a family photo wall. But instead of actual relatives, they posted drawings, poems, and snapshots of the people who had truly shown up for them. Teachers, neighbors, librarians, foster parents, siblings, even pets. One girl, maybe 10 years old, taped a picture of her school bus driver and wrote beneath it, "He waits when I run late. He always waves." That's enough for me. I felt my throat tighten. Because it was enough. We spend so much time begging love to come from the people who are supposed to give it. But sometimes, love comes from those who simply choose to. That afternoon I taught them how to take portraits. Not the fake kind, not the smiling on command kind. I told them to look through the lens and capture real things. Softness, strength, the way someone laughs or looks away when they're shy. At the end of the session one of the boys tapped my shoulder. "I took one of you," he said. "Wanna see?" He handed me the camera. And there I was, not posed, not performing. Just me mid-laugh, head tilted back, light falling through the window and catching in my hair. "You look happy," he said. And I realized. I was. Not all the time. Not perfectly. But enough. One night I got a message from Ben. Simple. Unexpected. "Just saw the photo project you posted. It's incredible. You always had the best eye for this stuff." I stared at the screen. Then typed back. "Thanks. Hope you're well." He replied with a thumbs up emoji. That was it. And honestly, it was enough. Because I wasn't answering out of guilt. Or habit. Or hope for more. Just kindness. From a distance. A boundary that felt peaceful, not painful. Spring bloomed hard that year. The city turned green like it was remembering how to be soft again. So did I. I started walking more. Sitting in parks. Reading on benches instead of hiding in rooms. I stopped editing myself in conversations. Letting silence sit when I didn't know what to say, laughing loud when something actually made me laugh. I took a solo trip for the first time, 3 days to the coast. No one knew I was going. I didn't post about it. Didn't seek approval. I packed my camera, a thrifted yellow jacket, and a journal with half its pages still blank. And for 3 days I took pictures of strangers. Old couples walking hand in hand. Kids feeding pigeons. A woman reading on the steps of a museum. None of them knew I was watching. None of them performed. They were just living. And in their quiet existence I found parts of myself again. The last day of the trip I asked a passerby to take a photo of me. I stood on the edge of a cliff trail, ocean behind me, wind in my hair. When I saw the photo later I didn't nitpick it like I used to. I didn't ask if I looked pretty enough. I asked, does she look free? And she did. When I returned home there was mail waiting. A card. Family updates, summer edition. I knew who it was from before I opened it. Karen. Inside was a 2-page letter filled with details I didn't ask for. Sasha got into Colombia. Ben was moving in with his girlfriend. Dad had gotten a promotion. The dog had passed away. There was no, how are you? No, we miss you. No acknowledgement of absence. Just a steady stream of, look how fine we are without you. But I didn't feel hurt. I didn't feel left out. Because it wasn't my family anymore. They were just people I used to live with. Later that night I went to the photo wall I'd built in my room. It had grown. Photos of my kids from the center. Aunt Lila. My college friends. Sunsets and street corners and small moments that made my chest swell with quiet joy. In the center I pinned the ocean photo. And beneath it I wrote. She left the frame. And found the whole world waiting outside of it. Some stories don't get a perfect arc. There's no apology from Karen coming. No big scene where Dad realizes what he missed. No family group hug. And that's okay. Because closure isn't always a door closing. Sometimes it's walking through a different one, and never looking back. This year I made another Christmas card. Still just me. Still imperfect. But this time I added a second photo. One of the youth center kids holding up signs that said, "Family is who stays." I mailed them to the mailing list I'd built. Supporters, mentors, found family. At the bottom of each card it read, "To anyone who's ever been cropped out. I see you. You're still in the picture, just a better one." It was the week before Christmas again. 1 year after the photo I wasn't in. But this time the air didn't sting with rejection. It was cold, sure. Bitter even. But it wasn't empty. There were hands I could hold now. Voices I could call. A world I had chosen piece by piece after letting go of the one that had refused to hold me. I was standing at the corner coffee shop near Aunt Lila's, waiting on my usual oat milk latte, when the barista slid an envelope across the counter. No stamp. Just my name in handwriting I recognized immediately. That. I didn't open it right away. I tucked it in the back pocket of my jeans and went for a walk instead. Let the wind bite at my cheeks. Let the city blur past. Let the letter burn a soft ache into the small of my back. Some people's apologies show up late. Others come as quiet acknowledgments, not confessions. I didn't know what kind of letter it would be. But I knew this, I didn't need it anymore. Which made it feel like I could read it without bleeding. Back at my apartment I sat on the edge of my bed, letter in hand. I didn't light a candle or play soft music. I just opened it plain and raw. I know we didn't do right by you. Not always. Probably not often. I didn't know how to make space for more than one person needing things. Karen said it was easier if you didn't feel entitled. I thought that meant strong. Turns out it meant erased. I see that now. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even know what I expect at all. I just wanted you to know that I've been reading your posts. I see your face in those kids. I see your words in their signs. I think you became everything I wasn't. I'm proud of that. Even if I was too small to say it before. No, I love you. No asking me to come home. Just a folded up piece of his version of truth. I didn't cry. Didn't smile. Just sat with it. Heavy. Quiet. Not angry anymore. Not really. Just aware. Some people apologize like they're crossing things off a list. Some write to be seen. Others write because they finally do. That weekend, the youth center held their winter showcase. The kids had spent weeks preparing poetry readings, songs, a small play about what home means. I watched from the wings, my camera forgotten in my lap. They spoke about kindness, safety, laughter, being known. They didn't talk about picture-perfect houses. No mention of gifts or big trees or the best-dressed table. They talked about eye contact. About someone remembering your favorite color. About warmth in a cold place. One girl, 10 years old and full of nervous energy, ended her monologue with, "Home isn't where you were born. It's where you don't have to lie about who you are." I exhaled so hard I didn't realize I'd been holding my breath. Because yes, that was it. That's what they'd taken from me. And that's what I had built back, brick by bloody brick. After the showcase, I asked each kid to take a Polaroid, one photo of themselves and one of someone they consider family. Some held up pictures of each other. One boy took a selfie with his teacher. One held up a mirror. It was messy, imperfect, beautiful. I told them, "This is our card. This is our frame." And they cheered. No one was cropped out this time. No one had to ask if they belonged. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table with Aunt Lila, helping her label envelopes for her holiday cards. She still writes them by hand, each one unique, no generic printouts. She paused over one and asked, "Should I send one to your dad?" I shook my head. Not out of bitterness. Out of clarity. "He sent his," I said. "We're square." Later that day, I printed my own card. A single frame of me and the youth center kids, all laughing, arms draped over each other, some blinking, some blurry. A photo that would have made Karen cringe. I loved it. On the back I wrote, "We don't need perfect families. We need safe places. And laughter that doesn't have conditions." A few days before Christmas, Ben texted again. "We're all going to Mom and Dad's. If you want to come, you can." That was all. No apology. No "we miss you." No explanation for last year. But this time I didn't freeze. I didn't panic. I just texted back, "Thanks. I've got plans." And that was true. Because I did. Not fancy ones. But honest ones. On Christmas Eve, I cooked dinner with Aunt Lila. We played old Motown records and made cinnamon rolls from scratch. We FaceTimed my best friend in California who wore reindeer ears and read us a terrible Christmas poem from Reddit. We laughed so hard we cried. And for a moment I caught myself, in the reflection of the kitchen window, and saw something new. Not someone excluded. Not someone proving they were okay. Just a girl at home in the life she made. Unapologetically in the picture. That night, before bed, I lit a single candle and sat by the window. I thought of the photo I was cropped from last year. The cold air. The silence. The camera shutter clicking like a closing door. I let it sit in my mind for a while. Then I let it go. Because maybe healing isn't about forgetting the photo you weren't in. Maybe it's about building a life where you don't have to ask for space in the frame. A life where your presence isn't up for debate. A life where you're not cropped out. Because you took the picture yourself. I whispered a quiet, final truth. I wasn't invisible. I was just the story they didn't know how to tell. Strange what the mind holds on to. Not the grand gestures. Not the arguments. Not even the big betrayals. But the snapshots. The accidental moments that weren't meant to wound, but did. Like standing at the bottom of the stairs, hearing them laugh without me. Like the flash of a camera that didn't wait for me to come downstairs. Like the silence that followed when I finally asked, "Why wasn't I in the photo?" Even now, those moments return sometimes. Not as daggers but as shadows. Lighter, softer, but still present. And yet, they don't scare me anymore. Because now I understand them. They weren't proof that I didn't belong. They were proof of the emotional truth I had been trying to outrun for years. That sometimes the most painful exclusion doesn't happen with words. It happens in the spaces where your presence should have been a given, but wasn't. January came quietly. No resolutions. No new year, new me. Just a quieter kind of commitment. To stop negotiating my worth in rooms that had already voted me out. To stop replaying scenes in my head trying to edit them into something kinder. To stop waiting for an apology from people who were still convinced they hadn't done anything wrong. One morning, I sat in front of my computer and opened the folder labeled Family Photos. I hadn't touched it in over a year. Hundreds of images. Some real. Some blurry. Some too painful to keep looking at. I selected 10 of them, The ones where I was barely in the corner. The ones where I had been cropped. Or the ones where I was there but clearly not present. Then I opened a new folder. Titled it, The Photos I Choose. Inside it, I placed one picture. The Polaroid of me and the youth center kids from the winter showcase. Faces unfiltered. Joy unedited. Presence undeniable. And I kept going. A picture of me reading a poem to a small audience. Another of me laughing with Aunt Lila at a farmer's market. One from the park, barefoot in the grass, holding a cup of iced coffee, surrounded by friends. Not posed. Not perfect. But mine. And in those photos I found something I had never seen in the family ones. Ease. Not the tight, performative smiles. Not the stiffness that came from trying to be acceptable. But ease. Because I didn't have to earn a spot in these frames. I already belonged. That same week I got an email from a girl named Izzy, 15, from Ontario. Her message was short. I didn't get picked for our Christmas card this year. They said it's too expensive to include everyone and my stepsister makes the photo look more professional. I googled how to not feel hurt by something stupid and your blog came up. It made me cry. Thank you. I sat with that for a long time. As I remembered being Izzy. Wondering if you were overreacting. Convincing yourself the pain was too small to name. Trying to outgrow the ache by calling it silly. But it's not silly. It's a wound with a face. Its absence printed and mailed to extended family with a Merry Christmas message. It's proof that they could have included you, and chose not to. I wrote back. Izzy, I'm so sorry that happened. It's not stupid. You are not overreacting. You're reacting to something real. The photo doesn't define your worth, but it still hurts when people act like it does. That's human. And it's okay to grieve it. Here's what I do now. I make my own year-end photo. Just one. Me and someone I love. Me and something I'm proud of. Me laughing or reading or resting or creating. Something that proves I was here. I call it my truth snapshot. You deserve one too. She responded a day later with a selfie of her and her cat. They were both wearing red scarves. Her smile was hesitant but proud. Underneath she wrote, My truth snapshot. First one ever. I cried a little. Not because I was sad. But because that's why I keep telling these stories. Not to dwell in the pain. Not to shame the ones who cropped us out. But to say to the ones still standing outside the frame, come in. We saved you a spot. That month I pitched a new workshop at the youth center. Snapshots of self. Each participant was asked to bring 3 images. One where they felt invisible. One where they were almost present. One where they felt fully seen. The conversations that followed were unlike anything I'd ever heard. Kids talked about school awards they weren't invited to. Birthday parties where they blew out someone else's candles. Photos where their heads were cropped or their names were forgotten. But they also talked about the moments where they felt seen. A coach who saved their drawing. A friend who texted back with, I'm proud of you. A teacher who wrote, you belong here, on their essay. They laid out their photos on the table side by side. And then they wrote letters, not to the people who hurt them but to the versions of themselves in the forgotten frames. You didn't deserve that. You were always enough. I see you now. It was the most healing kind of chaos. Ink smudged from tears. Glitter on paper. Broken crayons being used anyway. Truth told in scraps and color. And at the end we took one group photo. Messy, loud, imperfect. But no one was missing. That night, I hung a string of lights across my bedroom wall and clipped up some of the Polaroids. One caught my eye. A picture of me helping a girl glue her letter onto a neon pink poster. We were laughing. Full smile. No performance. It hit me then. This is the photo I'll use next year. Not for a card. Not for approval. Just for me. Because even if no one else puts me in their frame again, I've already made my own. I closed my laptop. Pulled the blanket up to my chin. And let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding since last Christmas. That photo, the one I wasn't in, used to haunt me. Reminds me of how far I've come. Because once upon a time I begged to be in their picture. But now I know. The most powerful picture is the one you take when no one else is looking. And you love what you see. February crept in softly, with gray skies and wind that rattled the windows at night like someone trying to come back in. But I didn't feel haunted anymore. That old photo, the one they sent to 100 mailboxes without me in it, no longer made me shrink. Not because I had forgotten what it meant, but because I had reclaimed what it took from me. Still, something inside me stirred when the family group text, yes, the one I was still technically part of, pinged with a message. We're thinking of doing another shoot this year. Matching sweaters again? LMK your sizes. It was from my stepmother, Karen. I stared at it for a long time. Not because I planned on responding, but because this was the first time they'd even pretended I might be included. And even then, it felt like theater. Like a performance for someone else's comfort. Because there was no apology for the last time. No acknowledgement of how I had spent that holiday. No space given for my silence. Just a smiling emoji and a request for measurements. I locked my phone, went to the kitchen, made tea with too much honey and leaned against the counter staring at nothing. And then I whispered, out loud to no one in particular, you don't owe them your participation. And I felt a quiet, surprising wave of peace. That weekend I attended a photography exhibit in the city. The theme was missing. Each photo was paired with a short story, printed on thin white cards, about someone who had been left out, lost, or forgotten. A brother cropped from every childhood photo after coming out. A mother who stopped smiling in pictures after her third miscarriage. A daughter blurred in the background, always out of focus, always just barely there. But the last wall held something different. A massive photo collage titled, Re-entered. Each image had been taken by someone who once felt invisible, and now chose how they were captured. Messy, loud, imperfect, but chosen. And in the middle of it all, a mirror. No caption. Just the unspoken invitation. Add yourself to the frame. I stood there for a long time. Not crying. Just breathing. Because that mirror, it didn't lie. I was here. In full. That night, I walked home slower than usual. The air was cold and the streetlights cast soft pools of gold on the sidewalks. I took the long way. Past the bakery that always closed too early. Past the bookstore where I used to sit and read during lunch breaks. Past the little thrift shop where I found my favorite scarf. And as I walked, I thought about all the places that had made me feel seen. Not because I fit, but because I showed up as I was. The spaces that didn't require me to shrink. When I got home, I dug out a dusty shoebox from the back of my closet. It was full of old photos. Some bent, some faded, most of them tinged with the kind of nostalgia that makes your chest ache. There were photos from school field trips. My 4th grade birthday where I wore a crown made of construction paper. A blurry one of me sitting on the back porch with our dog, Sam. My arms around his neck, his tongue out, eyes half closed. That one made me pause. Because Sam had always known how to see me. He didn't need a Christmas card to show loyalty. Didn't need a staged photo to prove affection. He just sat beside me, every day, every storm, every heartbreak. And I thought maybe that's what I've been trying to do for myself now. Just sit beside the younger me who got left out. And say, I'm still here. And I'm not going anywhere. The next morning, I got an email from a woman named Cassie. She was 32. A teacher. A mother. A foster child who had grown up with 7 different families. She had found my blog through someone else's repost and read it in the middle of the night, nursing her newborn. I never thought a Christmas card could reopen so much pain, she wrote. But I cried the whole way through your story. Because every year when I got left out of their family updates, I told myself it didn't matter. That I was just temporary. That it made sense. But it still hurt. And it still lives in me. This year I made my own. Just me and my son. We wore matching socks and held a sign that said, our first Christmas. Our first forever. It was the first time I didn't feel like I needed anyone else to validate my joy. I stared at her message for a long time. Then I wrote back. You weren't temporary. You were just placed in a temporary space. You've always been permanent to yourself. That photo you took, that's legacy. In March, I led a workshop called Framing Forward. This one wasn't about pain. It was about rewriting. About crafting a visual story not based on who excluded you, but on who you chose to be seen by. The assignment was simple. Take one picture every week. Just one. Of yourself. With someone you love. Or doing something that reminds you that you're alive. And the twist? No captions. Because sometimes, proof doesn't need explanation. Sometimes showing up is enough. One girl, Olivia, took a picture of her feet dangling over a dock. She said, this was the first time I went somewhere alone without texting for permission. Another, Marcus, submitted a blurry photo of himself in front of a blank wall. He laughed. It's technically bad, but I'm in the middle. For once. Each one made the room warmer. Each photo felt like a quiet revolution. And at the end of the session, we printed them all and pinned them to the wall like constellations. Not perfect, not uniform, but real. And this time, everyone was in the frame. April arrived with warmth. Sunlight filtered through the trees with more softness, more clarity. And on one of those afternoons, I did something unexpected. I responded to the group chat. Just one line. You can take your photo without me this year. But thank you for the offer. No drama. No blame. Just choice. Karen left it on the scene. Dad sent a thumbs up emoji. Ben texted me separately. Proud of you. Seriously. And that was enough. Because I didn't need them to clap for me. I had already framed myself. In truth, in boundaries, in moments that were fully mine. That Sunday I took a picture. Just me. Sitting in the park. A book in one hand. A coffee in the other. Hair a mess. Face relaxed. And I smiled. Because I didn't need the photo to be proof of anything. I just needed it to be true. May brought blooming trees and unexpected emails. One morning, while I was responding to comments on my blog, an email landed in my inbox with the subject line. You're still part of the family if you want to be. It was from my dad. 5 words in and my chest tightened. Not in fear but in a strange, detached curiosity. I opened it slowly, letting my eyes scan the neatly spaced lines. We've been thinking about you a lot. Karen wants to invite you for dinner. No pressure. Just, we'd like to talk. I know the Christmas photo thing really hurt you. I didn't handle it right. I let things happen when I should have spoken up. And maybe it's too late now. Maybe we can't go back. But I hope somehow we can still move forward. I'm sorry I didn't notice how left out you were. That's on me. There were no grand apologies. No grand promises. Just a few sentences. A few cracks of light. And I didn't respond. Not right away. Not out of spite. But because for once I wanted to sit with my own needs before rushing into theirs. That evening I visited my favorite bookstore. The one with mismatched chairs and a sleepy golden retriever who napped near the poetry shelf. I picked up a copy of The Velveteen Rabbit. A book I hadn't read since I was small, but something in me craved it. There's a line in that story I had once underlined in a copy I owned as a child. Once you are real, you can't become unreal again. It lasts for always. And as I sat there in the corner, surrounded by worn books and strangers sipping tea, I whispered it aloud to myself. I was real now. And not because they finally noticed. Not because they asked me back. But because I had claimed my space, my story, and my voice. I went home and printed a photo I had taken the week before. It wasn't polished. It wasn't perfect. It was me in my kitchen dancing while making pancakes, hair white, spatula in hand, laughing. I taped it above my desk with a small caption underneath. Included. Not by them, but by me. And that became my new holiday tradition. Each season I took one photo. Not for a card, not for social media, but just for myself. Proof that I had lived inside my own life. Not just outside the frame of someone else's. Summer passed like a soft breeze, warm and quiet. In July, I hosted a small picnic for a few people from my writing group. We sat on mismatched blankets in the park, shared strawberries and stories, and someone brought a disposable camera just for fun. When we developed the photos a week later, one picture stopped me. It was me lying on my back in the grass, eyes closed, laughing so hard my hand was over my face. I looked free, and I realized this was the picture I wished my family had ever taken. Not because I wanted their camera, but because I wanted that moment, that version of myself, to exist sooner. But even now, late older, I had found it. And that mattered more. In August, I received a package. No return address. Inside, a card, 2 pages of folded notebook paper, and a single photograph. The card was blank. The paper was from Ben. I don't know if you'll read this, but I needed to say it. I should have said something when Karen told you to sit out that year. I should have refused to be in the photo without you. But I didn't. I was scared of rocking the boat. I thought I'd lose what little peace we had. But peace bought with silence isn't real. And what happened to you wasn't fair. You always felt like the extra. The blurry one in the crowd. But to me, you were the realest person in that house. The photo, one from a disposable camera. The age 9, sitting on the stairs in our old house. Ben beside me, both of us holding ice cream cones. Our faces were smeared with chocolate, our knees scratched from summer play. And we were smiling. Full, uninhibited, unguarded. Someone had captured it, and Ben had kept it. All this time, I stared at that photo for hours that night, because it reminded me that while people forget, moments remember. In September, I finally wrote back to my dad. One line: "Thank you for your message. I found peace. I hope you find yours too." And that was it. No invitation to reconnect. No return to the orbit I had spun out of. Just the closing of a chapter. Not with bitterness, not with anger, but with stillness. It is some doors stay closed not out of punishment, but out of protection. And I was protecting what I had built. My voice, my space, my people. That winter I took my own photo again. Not a card, not a performance. Just me standing at the edge of a frozen lake, wrapped in a coat too big, a scarf too colorful, cheeks red from cold and smiling. Not because I was trying to show anything, but because I felt it. Home, not a place, not a family, but a state of being. I started mentoring younger writers after that. Many of them shared pieces with hauntingly familiar lines. My mom forgot my birthday. I wasn't in the family group photo. They always call my sister the smart one. And every time I told them the same thing. The absence wasn't your fault. You were never hard to love. They were just unready to love out loud. And on the last page of my journal that year I wrote this: "I am not who they said I was when they excluded me. I am not the blurry edge of someone else's frame. I am the whole photograph." So if you're reading this now, if your name has ever been left off the envelope, your face cropped from the picture, your seat forgotten to take, let this be the thing you keep. You are not invisible. You are just waiting for the mirror that tells the truth. And that mirror, it's this story. It's your story. You belong. Not because someone finally included you, but because you decided you were always perfect. Welcome to the frame. If this story made you feel seen, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. You were never forgotten, just unspoken. Like, follow, and come back for more real stories that help rewrite the narrative we were never allowed to question.